Hello and welcome to another episode of the Divinely Uninspired cast. Oh boy, it's starting. It's
the cast.
It's rough.
We're just the cast
coming in rough. All right. Well, that was the last time we're going to hear that beautiful Olympic theme by John Williams for 2 more years.
4 more years. Oh, I guess the Winter Olympics.
Did they not play it in the Olympics?
The winter, you mean?
That was Jeremy jumping in. He's very excited to correct.
Well, the Summer Olympics, but who watches the Winter Olympics?
Like, I love the Winter Olympics.
I actually like the Winter Olympics.
There's nothing.
I like them too, not bad.
Curling and the person that does like the long ski jump.
Watch out for the white cord.
That's the only 2 things worth watching. They should just make that the whole Winter Olympics.
I like the speed skating. It's just like running, but you're on skates. I like hockey in Olympics only. I can't think of anything else they do. I like the thing where they cross-country ski and they shoot.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't really like that. But
I like the version where they run and shoot, yeah.
They run and shoot?
Yeah. We talked about that. Remember there's an event where you actually do like a running, like 1,500 meters, and then you shoot targets.
Oh.
We talked about that last time. We talked about weird Olympic sports.
Oh, yeah. Well, the guys...
Making that up.
I'm pretty sure we did. I'm pretty sure we looked up weird Olympic sports and I mentioned that.
Okay. And the other dissenting voice is Penny.
Hi.
She's reached the end of Brat Girl Summer, and
that's right.
I am Paul, and we are just wrapping up the Olympics that just wrapped up. Well said. And America, I don't know if you heard of it, it's us. We won the medal count, tied with China for gold, but 126 overall, and that is...
We won again.
America, the best.
What was our majority of like our gold in? Like, do you know?
Sports that they play.
Oh, I'm
sorry.
You know what?
They do like activities, and then whoever wins.
Is that what happens
Yeah,
Probably
at the
gold.
Olympics?
I'm going to guess men's sports, but...
Actually, no, there were more... Actually, Paul, to correct you, there were more female winners than men.
Oh.
Well.
So, yeah, sorry.
I mean... Okay.
But a fun fact for you guys. So America did dominate in the Olympics, but the University of Kentucky, between basketball and track and field, they won 14 golds, which means that if the athletes that represented or participated in Kentucky in athletics were their own country, they would have finished in 9th.
That's pretty great.
U of L,
Go Cats.
No.
Well,
I don't think they had a single athlete in the Olympics.
I heard that U of L won 10 medals, but they're going to have to give them back in 5 or 6 years.
They did have an
infringements.
athlete. They did have some athletes.
Did they? Who?
For what country?
What country? Yeah, what country? China?
No, listen,
Come
I'm
on,
pretty
U of L.
positive that U of L had some swimmers.
Did they?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive.
Full disclosure, I didn't watch any of the Olympics.
you didn't watch it?
No,
I
I'm
watched
just
all
kidding.
of
No,
it.
I was like, are you serious?
Can I tell you what I really enjoyed this year was, strangely enough, the now they call it artistic swimming.
Oh, yeah.
Those people,
The America team was good.
they were underwater, but their legs were outside dancing. I mean, you can call the basketball players athletes all you want, but not a single one of them could do.
It is amazing,
that.
and then how they lift the girls in the air, and they're not touching the bottom.
No,
like
and
they're
they're doing
swimming,
flips,
and they
and
throw them up, and that is pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
We watched the recap on Peacock or the replay, and there's no commercials, so you could just watch 10 or 15 in a row.
Yeah.
This is how TV
Do
should
guys
be.
do that too, or is it just females?
I don't know if that's a guy sport or not.
I don't know. I didn't see any guys doing it.
Do the guys do the rhythmic dancing too? Like, where they take the ribbon? Do guys do that too?
They did on Old School. I don't know if they do that.
I don't think they do that during Olympics.
Is there things
I don't
that
think
the guys do that the girls don't?
There are a lot of events that are only male or female events.
Okay.
But I don't know about. I don't know about those. We'll find out.
Okay. Well, we won't, but it's fine.
Yeah, we won't. It doesn't matter.
Thanks.
Nobody actually cares about those events.
So I was going to bring up, and I want your all's opinion on this. We are all similarly aged, and when did Snoop Dogg become not a person who's been on trial for murder and a gangster rapper, but America's mascot? Because
I think he did that show with what's her name?
Martha Stewart?
Martha Stewart years ago, and
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of like turned the corner.
But he's really, I've always said he's gotten by with less talent than anybody else I've ever met in my entire,
agree.
because he had one good album and then
Right.
he
I
kind of
agree,
fell
Paul.
off.
But he was friends with all those guys, like Dr. Dre and all those guys.
Still, that's 30 years ago that he was, maybe 35 years ago when, I don't know when his first album came out, but he was everywhere on the Olympics and he was taking pictures with people's families. And
So the last time they had the Olympics, Snoop Dogg did commentary with Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
And it was really funny.
Yeah.
And I think that they kind of noticed that. So maybe there's something behind that. I like him. I actually think he's pretty great as a little mascot.
well, he had his dressage outfit on, and him and Martha Stewart were there watching the horses. And I couldn't get enough of seeing that happen. Oh,
I also saw that Flavor Flav was there too.
Yeah, Flavor Flav was there. And then Stephon Marbury was there. I don't know if you guys saw that in the the men's final basketball game, but they showed Stephon Marbury a lot, and I'm like, I haven't heard. I mean, Stephon Marbury.
Do you know why?
Relevant.
It's because he has a new TV show on Peacock.
Oh, does he?
Like a fictional show that he stars in, I think so.
Because I mean, he played in the NBA and then went to China, and then his only claim to fame was his Starberries.
Wait, we're talking about Stephon Marbury, not Steph Curry. I apologize.
The basketball player. Yeah,
no, you're talking about Starbury.
Starbury. Yeah.
No, I have not. I did not.
You know who Starbury is?
No idea.
Stephon Marbury.
Stephon Marbury. We just said that.
I wasn't paying attention.
So like, he actually was really cool. He made like a really like high quality men's basketball shoe called the Starberries, but he sold them at Kmart so that like kids that like couldn't afford like Nikes and stuff
Shaq does that
could
now.
buy them. Yeah, but Stephon Marbury was the first one to do that, and they were actually really good basketball shoes. So
yeah.
Anyway,
he was a good guy. Yeah, he was the one that went to China, and then people were like, "Hey,
yeah."
He was like, "China's real dirty. You see it on TV, and it looks nice, but
yeah."
It's like you could scrape all the pollution off the windows of this house I'm living in."
So I'm kind of sad the Olympics are over because it gave me a lot of entertainment the last 2 weeks. I watched it. I mean, when I would just go home, I'd just put on the encore on Peacock and just watch it. So
yeah,
they did a great job on. Well, no, Peacock did a terrible job.
I didn't watch it on Peacock. I watched it on like YouTube TV, and they had all this stuff.
Once the replays went up, that was the way to go. It started out real bad, but
yeah.
Anyway, it was a good time. Tom Cruise did something crazy, dove in and rode a motorcycle out.
I watched all of 5 seconds of the closing ceremony, and I remember being like, "This is dumb."
I watched it later.
Dumb.
I watched.
It was like
no, it's all dumb.
It was so dumb.
They did like athlete karaoke or something, and did y'all see that? And then it was like a French.
What?
So they did this thing where it was called athlete karaoke, where they were going to put up the lyrics on the screen, and all the athletes were supposed to sing this song, but it was in French, and they didn't put the lyrics up, so everybody's just like doing. I mean, it was pretty awful.
Yeah, it was bad.
I think as they make everybody come in at the beginning, they should make everybody leave single file, country by country, starting with Z, and they just all go back out at the end, and then see you in a couple of years. So
yeah.
All right. Well, so the Olympics are over. It's pretty great. Now we're going to get to the hard hitting issues, and I'll start with Penny because me and her are we're trash. So how long would you ignore your check engine light in your car?
It depends. Probably a good while.
A good while. Jeremy,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I think that's ridiculous. Why would you ignore it?
I ignore a lot of signs in my car.
Listen, the car doesn't
specifically the
know.
gas light.
Why? What? No.
Well, Penny, as much as she'll tell you, she does enjoy to gaslight, but she does not enjoy the gaslight. And you can't
That's
enjoy
terrible.
that because your car
What do you
does.
enjoy about the gaslight coming on? It's like the most nerve-wracking thing in the world.
Jeremy, why do you think that is in your car? It is to tell you, hey, you need gas. So that is my sign that I need to get gas.
You should not. It should not go below a half a tank.
But I know
Ever.
my car. I know me. So if it's hitting 40 miles, I know where I need to go and how far it's going to like.
Yeah, I didn't know I was podcasting with my mom, Jeremy.
Right.
Goodness.
I mean, I stop at
Goodness.
I love gas stations. This has been well documented on
Yeah.
this podcast.
Well, I like a
so
snack.
We're
when I
aware.
stop at a gas station, if I'm going to go in and get
Get
know
some sushi.
some
And a
sushi
Red
or
Bull.
if I'm going to get a Coke Zero fountain because that's the best way to drink it, and some boiled peanuts, like why not put $5 in your tank or $10 in your tank? And
What are your favorite gas stations? You like Huck's?
I do like Huck's, but they're not really around here. I like Casey's. I mean, Buc-ee's is obviously the best. I like a Wawa.
Hang in there, people. This is not a repeat episode.
Yeah, so I think Buc-ee's is pretty good. Huck's is good. I've been there a few times. I think we were there as staff a couple times, like on trips.
The
like,
Huck's had
yeah.
a really good protein bar.
Yeah, so we stopped at Huck's, on our way to Paul remembers. And there's a bunch. There's not that great of gas stations around here. Racetrack was a nice improvement. We're getting Wawa's. Of course, Buc-ee's is only 60 miles away now. But
Yeah.
Well, so on average, Americans ignore their check engine light for 4 months. And I say that's low
I say that is low.
because I miss every day when I drive. I miss my Scion. I had one of those toaster square cars, and it had something going on with the gas cap that something was weird about that, but it made 2 or 3 lights come on, and it was just part of life. And
Yeah, I
drove
would
it
think
for
like an
6
older
or 7 years
car,
now.
like maybe it would be okay. Like you'd be like, yeah, I kind of know what that is. But if it was a newer car and it came on, I'd be a little hesitant to drive around for 4 months with it on.
Well, I think
if it was a newer car, you'd be more hesitant? I'd
Yeah.
be more hesitant with an older car because an older car would be like getting towards the part where things are starting to go
Well,
wrong
Paul
with
just
it.
explained why his.
But he said he had an old Scion that had like issues. So that
I
would
actually
be...
don't even think he called it old. Was it old?
I mean, it wasn't new.
I just assumed.
I mean, I haven't seen a Scion in a good minute.
I
so I'm
drove it
just
until
assuming that it's-
the engine blew a gasket. But so an engine light, I think the problem is you think, oh, the engine light comes on, something's wrong with the engine, but that has never once been the case. It's always
something else. Yeah.
But they scare you with the check engine light, so I think it's.
Well, I mean,
I can't speak for Penny, but no.
I don't know if you guys know this
Engine's
about
fine.
cars. There's a lot, like the engine's the main part. Like that's actually the part that makes the car go.
Wow.
No, the gas pedal.
No, there's
idiot.
there's a lot of things that run into the engine that make the car work. So if those other things go bad, then eventually your engine could go bad, and then your car doesn't work. So
I think I'll chance it. Thank you. Thank you, though.
You call me if something goes wrong. Don't call Jeremy.
Right. So, thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Well,
If I run out of gas, I'm
I know.
calling
No,
Paul.
if you ran out of gas, that's on you.
that's
Come
on you.
What are you doing?
Exactly. If you run
Now,
out of gas,
doesn't your car have a thing saying you have about this many miles left?
That exactly.
but you're
That's my point.
you're trusting that. And what if
Well,
you
you're
get,
trusting your check engine
what
light.
if you get? Well, I know. Why not go? Okay.
I mean, who's to say?
Okay, but first of all, you don't want any lights coming up on your dashboard. And like,
No, I don't,
And then the
but-
other thing with like the gas, like who's to say you don't get stuck in like a traffic jam? Like you're like, oh, it's 30 miles to the gallon or 30 miles till E, but it's like, what if you get stuck in traffic or like what? I mean, 65 is a nightmare every day, and it's hot, so you're running your air conditioner, and your air conditioner uses more gas than if. I mean, there's just a lot of scenarios where you should probably never be under a half tank.
Speaking of like air conditioning, when we were on vacation one year, my dad like would turn off the car if we were in traffic to save gas. Does that actually work?
I think in the 70s
Yeah,
it did.
no, your car uses more gas if you're running your air conditioner.
Yeah, he would be like, "We got to turn off the air."
I don't.
It's not like crazy.
don't know
It's not
about
like crazy, but it does. You can Google this, Paul. Your car uses more gas if it's running air conditioning. You know why I know that is because your engine, remember, runs the whole thing. And so if you're running different elements of your car, it's still the engine that's like making everything happen.
Well, that's why he's our pastor.
Jeremy's drifting behind people
Oh,
to save
yes,
gas
your
mileage.
air in car does use gas. It might reduce your fuel efficiency by as much as 20%.
8% when you're driving 55 miles per hour.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
I mean,
Still not going to let him win this conversation.
that's like saying if you flip a quarter.
It's not
10
winning
times,
a conversation. It's actually just being right. Like,
Also,
it's very different
I
context.
don't mean to be ugly, but the goal should not be to win a conversation. You win an argument.
Yeah, it's not an argument.
You don't have
It is sort of an argument right
You don't
now.
win a conversation. You have a conversation.
I'm not winning an argument with you two. You were both just wrong.
Well, first of all, I'm not in the middle of this.
You were. You just said that.
You brought the topic up.
I thought I was supposed to. I thought I was the point guard over here getting this together. So, all right. Well, here I had another question. Then I wasn't going to do this week, but now I feel like it's proper. Here's another fun icebreaker. How often do you fight with your spouse and win? Penny, we'll start with you.
So inappropriate.
Is it a lot? You don't have to be honest. We'll go over to Jeremy if you don't want to.
I know this is a little bit awkward of a conversation. I think that every marriage they have arguments. So
Oh boy! All right, Jeremy.
I don't know.
I don't. I mean, honestly, me and Jamie don't really fight that much. So there's
Happy
that.
wife.
Oh,
happy
that's
life.
cute.
Yeah.
But I think the goal. I mean, the goal is not always winning.
Yeah.
So
I
No.
don't. Well, that's
It
a
is.
very diplomatic answer because
you can win the argument and still lose.
Well, that
So
was
it's
the
like,
that was the second part. Well, how do you feel when you win an argument with your wife? How does that, or your spouse, your husband, per se, Penny?
I mean, it does feel good to win an argument.
Oh no,
right?
but then he's well. I guess you
I
know
like
what?
to be right, Paul. It
No.
just is what it is.
Well, hang on.
I will say that. I will say this. I think the spouse thing is a different issue. But you know, the most satisfying thing is winning an argument with your kids. Like, because you're just like, you are wrong, I am right.
That's all the time.
I have a lot to unpack because first of all, I don't argue with my kids because they're always wrong. But
But to be able to be like, no, you're like, we know they're wrong, but to actually be able to prove that they're
Oh,
wrong.
that's very
and just
healthy.
be like, here you go.
and to go back to Penny's thing, I also like to be right, and I'm almost always right. That doesn't mean you win the argument.
But
This is
Paul,
true.
you're also factoring in that when we did the survey, both Penny and I, but I still would argue probably her more, are very stubborn. You were only a little bit stubborn.
Oh, that's right.
So very stubborn people like to win arguments.
I just don't have. We are much like you. We don't have arguments, but it's probably for different reasons.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway,
That is a weird icebreaker.
well, I got it from I think
icebreaker.com.
It was. They sell gum and they give us things to talk about on a podcast.
You unwrap the package and there's a little question on the back.
Yeah, it's a fight starter. That's what they do. So, all right. Well, guys, we got one more quick thing. I don't know if we have U of L news because they didn't do so great.
They did great in the Olympics.
They're also having another rough time. I don't know if y'all saw this.
What?
So Denny Crum, the great basketball coach when U of L was a good basketball team, they ordered a custom granite headstone for his gravesite, and the ship that was bringing it to America was hijacked by pirates, and it was thrown into the ocean. So
Is he buried by Muhammad Ali? That picture is of Muhammad Ali's gravesite. Is he buried?
I have a lot of questions to answer that question, which is how do you know?
It says Ali. See it where it says Ali right there?
Well, that doesn't have to be Muhammad Ali.
Who else in Louisville are they going to do that? I've actually been to Muhammad Ali's gravesite. You've never been to Muhammad Ali's? It's pretty cool.
No, because I'm not a Christian.
It's in, what's the name of that?
Cave Hill.
Cave Hill. It's in Cave Hill. It's KFC's Colonel Sanders is buried there.
I have a
haven't
plot
seen
there
that
just
one,
waiting
but
for
I have
my
seen
body.
quite a few at
So,
Cave Hill.
Isn't that exciting?
Huh?
I said I have a plot just waiting there for me.
At Cave Hill?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's big time, big futures in Cave Hill Cemetery. So
You'll love it.
I'm like, as soon as
It's very
everybody,
peaceful there.
as soon as everybody, people are dying to get in. That's what.
Yeah.
Is it family?
Yeah. And the minute that the generation above me is all passed away, we're selling those plots because those
They're
are gonna
probably
be
worth a lot
they're
of money.
probably worth a
so
lot,
much
yeah.
money. We're just like, it's literally a hole in the ground that I don't care about. My grandfather used to work there, so they got. They worked at AT&T when they were young, so they have like stock and all kinds.
So he is buried at Cave Hill, but the reason it says
Susan Sweeney Crum,
besides
his wife.
Susan Muhammad Ali. It says beside. See, very first line. Beside Muhammad Ali.
Isn't that like I thought that Muhammad Ali was buried in like a Muslim area of the.
I don't think so. It's like it's hard to find, but you
It's
can
right
find
there?
it. Well, I mean, it's hard to find it. Cave Hill is really big.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Okay, well,
if you've ever,
it is really cool to go there, though.
if you've ever been to a funeral there, which I've been to several in the past few years, it's almost impossible to find your way out of too if you don't get in the line because it is a long and winding
I need
road.
to go check it out sometime.
No, you don't. It's why I will ask Jeremy why you've been there.
Yeah, I've been there a few times.
What'd you do?
Walked around and looked at the grave sites
Why?
because I wanted to see where these people were buried.
Why?
I don't know.
It's interesting.
It is interesting. These are like
Why?
famous people.
Why
It's
is
the
it-
same reason like people go to like Abraham Lincoln's birth home and like George Washington's house and it's like it's just like
I would
a
also ask
historical
them
thing.
why. I guess I don't have that gene. Like that's not my thing. I don't know.
I mean, I just like to pay homage to people. I'm gonna go pay homage to Freddie this week when we go to the fair. So
Oh, that's awesome.
If they were smart, they would have a little granite tombstone of, him, of that and a voice recording that would play when you went by.
and a flame that never goes
Oh
out,
my gosh.
or a funnel cake just constantly cooking.
It smells like pork butt on a stick. That's right.
Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
Oh, goodness.
You all should have been here before the podcast started. That's when the real entertainment takes place.
all right. So anyway, Denny Crum.
pirates.
How did pirates get Denny Crum's?
Well, because it was
gravestone?
on a ship, and you know how these pirates are.
So it wasn't American made. There's
Well, no,
there's
they
problems
wanted
there.
fine craftsmanship out of Italian marble. I'm sure this is what they. Let's see. So if she spent months making sure the custom granite headstone was made exactly how she envisioned. His wife, Susan Sweeney Crum,
Who's also the
former news anchor,
news anchor
yeah.
on Fox 41.
Yeah. So they made that happen, and it was coming from India, and boy, now it's at the bottom of the Red Sea. So if you're diving in the Red Sea and you see Denny Crum,
I'm gonna find that someday.
isn't that creepy? And so, okay, well then I have another question.
Did they know it was Denny Crum's? Like, do you think
They said-
do you think pirates are like
They had some of those.
they're part of BBN?
they had
They're Big Blue Nation.
The denim UK jerseys.
yeah, from when they did it with the championship. So
That's
they're
right.
like, we hate Louisville.
That's right. But they got those free shirts because they sent them over. But they had the
They were
40.
like, go UK.
They had the 40 and O shirts.
They probably did. They had the 40 0 shirts and they became UK fans. They're like, this is the greatest team ever.
Patinos Bombinos, and they threw
Yeah.
them right into the river. So anyway, I have a further question, and this is, let's take a religious look at this. So my take on every time I've been to Cave Hill, and
You've been a lot. You just criticized me for going a couple times. You've been a lot.
I don't know if you missed what I was just saying. I've
Said
been
your
to
family's buried.
several funerals there in the past few years. So you drive through, and I know that my grandmother that passed in the last year, she was very big on it. She was so impressed by all the things, but as you drive through, you just see some of the most ridiculous, and I can only imagine that this would be ridiculous. Your own head on top of your, gravestone, whatever, a bust of yourself. Is the last thing that you want to do before you die commission like a 6 or 7 figure
No.
rock of yourself, and you're like, well,
I don't
I'm
care.
dying and I have this money, but forget the homeless people and all those without food and such. That's
know what?
That's
I
what I
mean-
see when I go by. I'm like, look at all this marble waste of money.
When I die, they can just take my body to like the top of a mountain.
Oh, we will.
Just let some animals, like some cats, like some mountain lions or some bears, just eat it and just
You in?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be
It's a
fun.
good idea.
Yeah, I mean, you're like,
I mean, that's my opinion too, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's why it's my issue with Cave Hill is that there's a lot of extravagant nonsense that
yeah,
it's not exactly the pyramids in your memory. It's
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, yeah, I don't get it.
I'm not a lot of fun at parties. This is the kind of thing I bring up. So
I think it's just like stuff like that is just like, I mean, we can get into the whole, we don't have to get into it. Like funerals are weird. It's all weird. It's all weird what we do.
yeah, we'll probably stop because you do funerals, so we don't
Yeah.
need to get into that.
It's
going
all
on.
weird stuff sometimes, but yeah,
All
just take my body to a mountain, let some mountain lions or some bears just eat it, and somebody can, be later looking through their scat and be like, oh, there's a piece of Joey.
As we do. Look at all this scat.
People do study bear scat. Like, that's like a thing. So,
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I had one more thing and I forgot. I don't know how I missed it, but here's a segue. If you really want to leave a lasting memory, the people who won the Olympics that weren't the gold medalist, the gentleman with the big gun and the silver, that won the silver medal, people loved him. But the woman from Australia, the breakdancer,
it was unreal.
I know I was really big on the breakdancing train. I was ready for it to be an Olympic sport. The things I've seen on YouTube are always real impressive, and maybe it's just being born in the 80s that I have breakdancing in my soul. It's not coming back next time because of the debacle.
How bad it was.
Did you watch any of it other than that woman?
I did.
It was bad.
And the rest of it wasn't great. Like, I mean, so like I was watching it and I was thinking, I don't know if you guys remember years ago. This is so stupid. But on America's Got Talent, there were those the Jabberwockies. Do you remember
the Jabberwockies? Yeah.
Like, they were breakdancers. And I remember being like, how impressed with their stuff. And I'm like, that's what I was expecting, was like some that quality of stuff. And then I'm watching, of course, the Australian lady is a whole different category.
Yeah.
But even like the people that were like good, I remember watching it being like, I'm not
great.
impressed.
Yeah.
I'm not that impressed.
I agree.
So, yeah.
It was bad.
I liked the setup where it was a battle, where people had to like dance in the middle and the other person just had to walk around the outskirts.
Yeah.
But it was never, I mean, even what is the Step Up to the Streets, all those movies, or
I don't know what you're talking about.
Penny knows. That's why I'm looking at her. Step Up and Step Up number 2, The Streets. All of these movies where they would have a dance battle.
Yeah.
Where you serve you got served? Is that or what?
I don't
was
know.
that
You're looking at me like I would know.
You serve someone, they serve you back, and then it's on. That's kind of what it was. But there was no like.
The last dance battle I watched was Michael Jackson in Thriller when he danced against.
He was also very good.
Yeah.
But none of that was going on. There was very little head spinning. None of the stuff I really liked.
Reagan was trying to spin on her
This
head.
woman,
Oh yeah.
God bless her, she went out there, not a breakdancer, somehow got a trip to the Olympics.
She has a PhD in breakdancing. Did you see that? Like, that's what she studied in school.
Yeah.
Like, she has a PhD in breakdancing.
From U of L. Is that
No, it's from some school. Like, first of all, like,
I went to U of L, so I can say that.
I didn't
good.
like what college is offering degrees in breakdancing?
Australia.
Yeah.
The dancing that she did, the thing that reminded me, because I wrote it down, somebody online called her Napoleon Vegemite, which is a funny Napoleon Dynamite joke. And I was like, all right. Because this dance, she did have a lot better core strength than I did, because she was on the ground doing the toe touches on the ground. But
the best part of it was watching it was awful. But then like she was like acting like she was taking notes and then like doing like stuff to the other dancer that actually wasn't that bad. And it's like, what are you doing right now? Like you're awful.
Oh,
Like,
I mean, to do it with a straight face was my favorite.
I mean, her outfit was incredible. Like, it's like all the other breakdancers, at least, were wearing like somewhat like you would expect maybe a breakdancer to wear.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Kind of like urban looking kind of outfits. And she looked like she should be like at a golf course, like being the person that like lets the people like cross, like moves the chain or whatever. Like, I'm talking about those people that stand there. Yeah, like that's.
You should be arresting our
that
top
was her
golfers.
look. Yeah.
Well, it was really something, and I say good for you, Reagan. I'm sorry that we can't have Olympics anymore. But then, Jeremy, if you want to be in the next one, these are the sports that are coming in America in 2028. Flag football.
Okay.
Squash.
Yeah.
Baseball. Probably baseball and softball.
Yeah.
We probably won't get it.
Because
you're a lady. And
You're done.
lacrosse and cricket. Now, I'm pretty sure.
How is pickleball not in there? How is pickleball not in there?
I don't know. For the record, Jeremy is a very good pickleball player.
It should be in there.
Don't encourage him.
You should. Sometimes you need to encourage and build people. We tear down a lot, but yeah. So anyway, if you want to get a squash team together.
What is squash?
I mean,
actually have no idea. What is
It's a lot
squash?
of,
What is
lot of
squash?
trash talk.
I've heard of it, but what is it?
I mean, it's a racket sport. I know that, but I don't know. Squash casserole. When you typed in squash, the first thing was squash
yeah.
casserole.
That's
It's a racket sport. I know that.
well, yeah, okay. Yeah, squash.
It's kind of like racquetball, maybe. It looks like
a
it.
small, hollow rubber ball. It looks just like racquetball. You hit the ball in such a way the opponent is not able to play a valid return. It's like you're playing Pong in real life with the ball.
Huh.
20 million people play it worldwide. How about that?
Oh.
So anyway, you get out, Jeremy. This seems like something you could do. It's like
Yeah, I
playing
like
pickleball
racket
with
sports.
yourself.
I like
yeah.
racket sports.
Yeah, I think it's a good time. So anyway, I know it's a riveting talk. So one more thing to transition to our important thing. Now, this is something that it might be embarrassing but I'm nothing if I'm not an open book, and this is what people tune in for to hear, the things that we do. I actually, until I was a parent myself, believed that it was illegal to have the back car light, the dome light on in your car while you drove, because that's what my parents told me as a child.
It was what?
Illegal.
No. Illegal to have the dome light.
Yeah, because they're like, turn that off. It's against the law.
It does affect the driver. I will say that.
Does it affect the gas mileage?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
All right.
Because that's electric, not
Well, the electric system. I heard the engine is the thing.
Well, the engine is, but that's not running. So then, do you mean tell you how a car works? I mean,
Well,
break it down
please.
for you? Well,
No.
I actually know. I know.
There.
It's running off
You
your
gotta call us bluff
it's running off
sometimes.
your alternator, which I guess is connected to your engine. But anyway, so
What?
because your car so your car battery is what starts your car, and then when it's started, then it goes to your alternator, which controls your electric stuff. I mean, a mechanic's going to correct me on this, but that's my understanding. Because I had an alternator go bad one time, and you could get like 20 miles before your battery would just die because your alternator wasn't kicking on, but your alternater runs the electrical systems.
I have checked out. I checked out like
So
the
anyway,
first, like,
no,
5 seconds
I
of
don't
whatever
think
he
the
was
dome
saying.
light affects your gas mileage.
Okay. Long story short.
I mean,
So,
Okay.
does your check engine light ever mean your alternator is doing something weird?
Probably.
Well, we better watch out, Penny, because put your phone down.
Yeah, if your alternator goes bad, we're doing a podcast here. If your alternator goes bad, then your car's not got much. You gotta have to get that fixed. That's bad news. If your
this is
alternator-
two different conversations.
Okay.
No,
Well-
it's the same because
well,
we're
so-
saying dome lights.
Well, I was going to ask you, did your parents ever tell you lies, like just blatant lies,
Oh,
just to
yeah.
make their life easier?
I mean, there's some big ones, but we probably shouldn't talk about those.
Well, no, I know where you're headed to, and we'll skip over.
We're talking about like
like dome lights being illegal, and then
don't take a shower when it's storming outside.
I remember
Like-
my parents
is
told
that
me.
bad? Should you not, because metal could hit the pipe or lightning could hit the pipes?
You also
Well,
like
then-
how they tell you to turn your car off when you're pumping gas. Like that has nothing. Like it
Well,
doesn't-
that I found out in high school with my stupid friends that were just leaving it running. I'm like, you're not. What are you doing?
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. You
Which
shouldn't
is
smoke
really-
a cigarette while you're pumping gas, but that's not.
Well, you don't blow it up every time, but why risk it? It's the vapors that's explosive.
One of my favorite, I don't know why I thought, one of my favorite scenes from any movie. What's the movie where it's Ben Stiller and they're like, wake me up before you go.
Zoolander,
and they're
yeah.
pumping their
Gasoline fight?
gas, yeah.
Have you ever seen Zoolander?
Where they do the
Yeah.
gasoline fight? and
Sometimes
they're
your
like,
friends don't always die in a freak gasoline
Oh my
fight
gosh.
explosion.
they're just pouring gas all over each other.
so terrible. Why is that funny? I
It's a really funny-
actually didn't even think that movie was that funny.
Oh.
I'm serious.
Well, all right, Paul, let's get her off the
I don't know about. Listen, we've put up with quite a bit on this podcast from you.
Last my parents
just
told me, I do remember my parents telling me, you know how like the rule is you can't order off the adult menu over the age of 12?
Well, sometimes menus say that, but yes.
Well,
That's
they
not
would
true.
tell me that as a kid I couldn't order off the adult menu
Oh.
until you were past 12. Like
That's
they reversed it, so they always had to order off. The
I
kids
tell
menu.
my kids that now.
Yeah, like you can't order adult stuff.
I'm like, please don't order adults.
No, I don't say. They would tell me you can't. Like it's against the rule. Like it was.
They'll come get you.
Yeah, they'll come get you. if
Were
you
they
want.
trying to monitor like what you were eating or just like for cost reasons?
Cost reasons.
Well, that's good. I wish my parents would have done that for the other reasons, and the husky genes wouldn't have been such an issue. But I did see a post. It was this week. It was Europeans and what they found about Americans, and they were saying, our friend said when we come to visit, just order something off the kids menu. And our American friend said, well, that's not enough. And they showed what they ordered off the kids menu. Like, this is what we call a meal in Europe. What
Yeah.
you get.
It's
in,
plenty for me.
yeah. Well,
I like to eat off the kids menu.
yeah.
Chicken tendies and
Oh,
fries.
chicken
Did you just
That's
call
a-
them chicken tendies?
Well, that's what you call them on the kids menu.
what?
They're
What is
boneless wings
happening right now? Yeah, we
The
don't.
adults menu.
First of all, how did That's a good point. How did boneless wings become a thing? Because it's basically just a chicken nugget,
Well,
like
because
with
men
sauce. But it's like
Because men used to have shame, and they didn't say, "I'd like some saucy nugs," but now that's what they advertise at Wendy's. So I don't know.
Also, do you still go places? I go to Burger King or Wendy's and still call them chicken McNuggets. Like if I order them off their menu, I still say I'll take
Wait,
chicken
get your
McNuggets.
nuggets spat in?
Yeah, I do that too.
I don't. No, I don't. You go to Burger King?
I like a Whopper every once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. I hate Burger King.
Flame broiled, but no.
I do like a Whopper. That's the only thing I order. Sometimes every once in a while, a Whopper's.
Gross.
All right, so lies.
I was gonna say.
I have a couple.
Yeah, well, please. Let's. And what do you
okay.
tell your kids that are lies? They don't listen because we've talked all kinds of trash about your children.
I probably use some of what my parents used to.
Yeah.
Like the whole like, are you going to get in the pool? Wait 30 minutes.
That's
before
another.
you eat?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
a big
before
one.
you can eat.
And why do you think they told you that as a kid?
I guess you get like some side cramps or something.
No.
and
Why do you
drown.
think the parents lied to you about it?
Do you think they lied or they just didn't know?
I'm sure
I-
they didn't know.
I'm sure
think-
they were told at one point you can cramp up if you get in the pool.
My hypothesis is because when you're at the pool, kids are like, shove this hot dog in my mouth or this like chip covered
They don't want you
sandwich.
throwing up in the pool.
Well, no, the kids eat fast and want to get back in the pool, and the parents are trying to have a nice time
Yeah.
and not monitor every second of the pool. And they're like 30 minutes, and then the parents are just like,
They can eat their meal in peace.
please let us
Yeah.
just take a break.
Yeah, that's probably a good hypothesis.
What else you got there, Penny?
Don't go to bed with wet hair was another one, or it'll give you a cold. I'd get that one a lot.
I've never.
You
heard
don't
that,
have-
but I'm a boy.
I know. That's growing up. Make
Well, yeah, you go outside and you catch cold too. You
That is
go
not
with wet hair.
true.
Well, no,
Go
because it's
outside
a
with wet hair
virus.
and
It's
catch
not.
cold?
You can't do that.
How do you know?
Because it's a virus. You don't like.
What if it's attracted to wet hair?
It's not.
That,
It's fake.
Jeremy, you're an excellent arguer.
I
will
know,
give you
right?
that.
Like
Oh, I didn't really know.
I can see
Yeah.
you and your poor children the argument you have with them. How do you know a virus isn't attached to you?
How do you know? How do you actually know?
Yeah. Well, we
Do you know
may
the
never
science
know.
behind that?
I could see both
I
sides.
don't think you know much about hair, so I don't think.
Whoa, that's rough. That's
Like,
That was a little hurtful. I
Penny
mean,
is
it's clearly I'm growing a beard because I can't grow hair on my head. So thanks for making me feel bad
You're
about
welcome.
that.
I
goodness.
wasn't trying to. Just making a point. You don't have hair.
Just a hate.
I'm gonna
Just
grow
on
my
your face.
I'm gonna grow my beard so long that I can just like wrap it around my head, like go up and do like a faux hawk, but it's just all my beard hair.
I mean,
just like
I'm here for it, but I don't have to live with you, so I don't know. Sorry, Jamie. That's coming home to you.
yeah.
Awesome.
What else you got? Anything that?
No, that's about it.
I think that's the two big ones. For me, it was always the dome light and the swimming.
I mean, there's some big ones, but we can't talk about. But
Well,
like,
stop.
in
Well, good.
I don't even know what that means.
are you
don't-
serious?
Hey, we're back. Okay.
Are you serious? Are you actually serious right now? You did not realize what I was referencing.
No, I didn't. Never
Listen,
mind.
I don't
Never
wanna
mind,
get-
y'all. Sorry.
I have a rant about one of those, but we're not going to go.
Yeah, we
that
can't
way.
get into them.
So
We do need to have our dentistry podcast though sometime. It kind of
Oh,
connects to
man,
one. We never had our.
I thought we would
dentistry
just
podcast.
let that.
die. It's not die. That's still
I
have a
like how
rant.
Jeremy made that connection to what we were talking about. But yes, yeah, I know a couple, maybe a few months ago, that's how it ended, and I was just going to let that sit because I feel like people are going to be mad.
I have
About
another
dentistry?
one, by the way.
Y'all are.
You
have another
lie?
one.
What is it?
Uh-oh.
Not that like someone would tell me, but you remember like if you crossed your eyes and someone hit you on the back, like your eyes would get stuck.
Or if you do that, they'll stay like that. They'll stick. I remember that one. Yeah. If you cross your eyes, they'll stick like that. Yeah.
Does that work?
I don't know.
Let's try it.
Somebody's out there with crossed eyes going, it does. So call in.
We would like to talk to you. Yeah, I mean, there were other lies. There actually was lies like that. There was like your eyes would get crossed. There was something else that was like along those lines. Like if you did that, like,
Right.
if you talk like that, your voice will start like. I remember stuff like that. Like if you keep talking like that, your voice will stay like that. And yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
All right.
My favorite was my mom never. Okay, she didn't listen to this, so it'll be fine. My mom never, I don't think, lied, but like anytime something was wrong with us, so like back in like the 70s, she bought a set of like encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, in the 90s, she's still referencing these encyclopedias for stuff. But one of them, like when you bought the set, like the salesman, you get the encyclopedias, but you also get this like book about like wellness and health and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So anytime something was wrong with us, she would like reference this like
Was it red?
yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like, she would like reference this book that was like from the 70s, and it would be like, I always want to be like, I think that modern medicine is probably a little bit more advanced than that book.
My
that
parents
you-
still have it on their shelf.
yeah, you bought it with a set of encyclopedias. Yeah,
That's funny.
My family had their own blue book that they had bought that was gigantic, and it was various ailments and things, and they would, get a cough, and instead of going to the internet, they would, because we didn't have it, they would go to this book, and well, I mean, we've all got leprosy. Like, what are you even talking about? There's no way that these diseases are.
One of my favorite stories of my dad was we would go on these vacations, and we just go on the lines of the encyclopedias, but also lies. We were out at Four Corners, like out in Arizona, and we went to this Indian reservation, and like we went to this like little fair they were doing. And there was this guy, and my dad had got sunburned real bad. And so there was like this Indian guy selling this magical spray that they made. And so my dad bought some and like put it on like his like sunburn. And I don't know what was in it, but it actually made it feel better. So like the rest of my dad's life, like he had this bottle, and like anytime something was wrong, he would just like spray it on there and just be like, well, it fixed it. And I'd be like,
it's just olive oil
I don't
and
know.
cocaine.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been cocaine. Who knows? But I think I actually want to find that bottle because I'm sure it's still at my mom's house somewhere.
Take it to the lab.
Yeah, take it to the lab. Be like, could you tell me what was actually in this? Because
That's funny.
my dad thought it could cure everything, and it did not.
Well, so, okay. Well, that was good. See, that worked. All right.
Yeah.
So, again, King of Transitions. So this is something that when and I do a healthy amount of lying to my children too about certain things because it's fun sometimes, and sometimes it just makes your life easier. And when you have kids, no one never tells you it's such a wreck sometimes. But then you have to. There's a fine line you walk between the way that you're raising them, and then to make a fun lie, or like you can't take a bath in the lightning storm.
What's the last thing you've lied to your children about?
Every night I tell them I love them.
Oh gosh, I hope they don't listen to this.
They don't listen to it, and I'm just kidding. Addie and Lily, y'all are the best. The best thing
You
that
do.
ever happened.
I mean,
to me.
everybody tells little white lies to their children. Not like. Oh yeah, we'll go do that, and then you don't.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Right.
No, we don't. So I don't lie to my kids a lot, but I say things to them that I think a lot of parents just wouldn't say to their kids.
I say a lot of things to end the conversation. Like if they keep asking, I'll eventually just say something. And it's not a lie, but like just be like, we're done. Like you know what I'm saying, to like just like shut it down.
Yeah,
because they'll just keep asking questions like over and over and over and over again.
We got in. This might be too much. I might have to cut it out. We got into a talk about fecal transplants last week, and so now we have a thing that I say to my children. My wife is horrified by it, but it'll end the conversation real fast. So.
Yeah,
that's pretty gross. So anyway, you're walking a fine line because you're telling your kids look up to you and they assume, or they should, that what you say as an adult is true. And then they get older and they find out that
you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that some of it's just flat out made up, and they have to like find out for themselves what their parents said is true and not. And that brings us to the topic that I want to talk about today, because Jeremy it's always interested me, but a couple weeks ago you were talking about, you were reading books on atheism, and then you see things about deconstructing and reconstructing your faith and things like that. And I would like to get into a little bit of that a little bit deeper than you did in your sermon. So
yeah,
you said you were reading some books that really challenged you and made you
those
angry.
were a few years ago. I read, so Christopher Hitchens is pretty famous, Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, and pretty famous atheists. I mean, like I recognize
all those
names.
Yeah,
they're almost, I mean, especially in the education world, like household names and stuff like that. And so they all three had like access to, and then actually another one is from the comedy world is Ricky Gervais. Like he's huge.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
him and what's the guy from HBO, Bill Maher?
Yeah,
Bill Maher?
yeah. So
not Mayer.
Several years ago, I got into a place where with atheism, I was hearing a lot of arguments. I think in deconstruction, we talked about it on the sermon. Deconstruction is a super popular word, and it's where, as an adult, you look back on your faith and you start to be like, huh. Because I think a lot of us, like we're told stories, and stories are presented a certain way as kids so that kids can like understand them. And like I always reference like the Noah story, like the ark, and I'm not going to get into like all the semantics of that story. But one thing is, it's like, there's like this happy story about like, Noah got on the ark with all these like rabbits and these chickens and all this and all these people. And you're like, yeah, but what about all the millions of other animals and people that died? You know what I'm saying? Like we only tell them this part of the story. We don't tell them the other part of the story, but like just stuff like that. But with atheism, there is a whole generation of kids. And like, that's the thing. Atheism wasn't talked about when we were kids. Like
right.
Here were the categories. You either go to church and you're a good person, or you don't go to church and you're going to hell. Like
right.
there wasn't like an educational piece to this of like, hey, there's actually people making some really strong arguments against the existence of not only God, but also the negativity of religion, So I got into a place where I was like, I just want to read what they say, and so God is Not Great was probably, I want to say my favorites because that sounds really bad to say it, but that one was
we'll clip that for the soundbite.
Yeah. That one was very good. And then Sam Harris is like brutal. Like just, I often tell people if you're going to read this book, like you need to be prepared to read it because like he is brutal. And actually,
but what does that mean, brutal? Like,
he is very well educated, has very good points. I'm not saying he's right, but brings up really good arguments, not only about the existence of God, or at least the way people have been presented the existence of God, but also like the negativity of religion. Like, I mean, he is really brutal about like all the bad that religion has done through human history. And he's actually right. Like there's a lot of really negative, bad things that religion's done. So
and continues to do today.
And continues to do, honestly. I mean, yeah. So, when you read those, I wanted to just see what is the other side saying. And I did them pretty much back to back to back, which was not good for me. Just because it was, I would get mad reading the books, but then also like to do them like that was also like, it's a lot to take in and process and all that stuff. But that did, and I've talked about it before from stage, that started me on my own journey of kind of deconstructing some things and thinking through some things and being like, you know what, maybe the way I've been presented this, and we talk about this a lot, like we've all been presented like an American Jesus.
Right.
And Jesus was not American at all and really not even Western in his thinking. We've been,
well, there was no America. To get started,
Christianity is based on Judaism, or is it extend from Judaism. And Judaism and even early Christianity is an Eastern religion. We've switched it to make it Western in identity, but it's not at all. And I think that changes the way, once you understand that, if you're being honest with yourself, it changes the way that you approach it. So that was the part of my deconstruction part. So I don't know if you have any questions about that, because I could talk about it for a long time, but...
sometimes there's like a sermon and you're like, I really like that kind of stuff. I think is very interesting, and we don't have time in church to get into the weeds of that kind of thing. But I seem to have grown up in the same way you did, where it was like black and white. You're going to hell if you don't go to church, and you're like going to heaven if you do. And you're like, well, this is.
And it was also the categories of good people and bad people.
Right.
And it was like, if you're a Christian, you're a good person. If you're not a Christian, you're probably kind of a bad person. And there's actually a lot of really good people that have nothing to do with Christianity, and there's a lot of really, to be honest with you, I'll say this, awful people that are Christians. So.
Well, so like whenever you would come across somebody who would say like, oh, they're, and I don't have this in my circles anymore because my circle is so small, but if you were in college or things like that, and people are like, I'm Buddhist or something, they're really trying to like follow what the Buddha says, like that kind of thing, where I feel like more people who say they're Christian don't really try to follow anything that Jesus said. That's just because they were raised the way we were, where it's like, oh, well, I go to church and then I go about my business a lot of time. And that's not, that's a broad stroke that I'm painting with.
I think that I would say that, so just as like in college is different because college kids are just dumb for the most part and they don't even know what they're doing. But, you think about Christianity, it is, I hate to use this language, but it is our nation's religion. Like it's a national religion. And so just like, if you go to places where Buddhism is the national religion, or even places where Islam, like that's just what you know. And so like we write off whole countries and groups of people because they're Buddhist or Islam or, Islam and Muslims. And it's like, yeah, but that's just all they've known. And just like how here we represented Jesus for the most part as a country. So we're just Christians because that's what you are when you're here. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's kind of like, to get in like the real stuff, like, there aren't a lot of Jewish people in the sense of like the temple Jewish people. Like that all died in 70 AD when the second temple got destroyed by Rome. Like Judaism as you know it from a biblical perspective, for the most part, doesn't exist anymore. There's not a lot. There's Orthodox Jews, but like it's very different than what we think of. Does that make sense? But you still have a lot of Jewish people because they're born in Israel or their family's Jewish. And so I think a lot of people here, like, and I don't want to pick on it, but there's a lot of people that I know that are Catholic. They don't actually know anything about Catholicism. They're just Catholic because my family was born Catholic. And I think that Protestant Christianity has now turned into that in a lot of ways. Like you're just Christian because you were born in a Christian family, or you were born in this part of the country and everybody's Christians, and
you're not really following Christ.
You're
as
not
much
following
as you're just born
Jesus.
into
You don't
it.
really know much about him, I don't want to get real controversial, but when you take Jesus and actually who he was and what he taught us, and put it up against Western thinking, it doesn't go well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
At all.
No.
Like what we do is we pick things that we like that make it seem like they're compatible, but they're not always very compatible.
Well, what do you think the people or why do you think, because it sounded like you were going to say when you were discussing the people in these books just now, the term axe to grind with religion, did they have, I've always, so, you have these scholarly people, but, I'll listen to more like comedy kind of things, and even people who don't believe kind of mock Bill Maher, and, he seems to be like like an evangelical atheist. Like he is out to say, hey, there is no God, but he spends so much time talking about it and making movies and stuff. It's like, what's the, like, why is that your life calling?
It depends on who you're reading. I mean, like, so Sam Harris has an axe to grind. And a lot of these guys, so Christopher Hitchens is a little bit different. But like his is more from the educational standpoint, like that they just, I mean, basically, and then some of them, like I think I'm wanting to say, it's been a while since I read it. I'm wanting to say Sam Harris grew up in a religious family, and so it was like forced on him versus being a choice. And I think that kind of started his journey. Hitchens was from the educational perspective of like, hey, there's all these questions and there's all these things, and we're just being presented these things as if they're like how it is. And I don't know if I agree with that,
But they've made that their identity to say, no, this is like, what are they getting from that being there?
Well, they're evangelists. I mean, they're the same thing as that's what they are.
They're just evangelizing nothing.
They're evangelizing
or atheism.
Yeah. And I think that, so here's the thing. Here's the thing about atheism, as far as I understand it. It's a system of faith.
Mm-hmm.
So as we would say, we believe in, my faith is in a God of some sorts, and we can get into the semantics of all that, but I think, okay, we don't have to right now. But like, so I believe in a God. I'm theistic in thinking. Atheism is a system of faith. You're believing, you're having faith that there's nothing. Does that make sense? So they're both systems of faith.
Right.
At the end of the day. And so you're believing in this system that this is what's true and real and right, So they're both systems of faith. It's just that atheism is like, no, it's anti-faith. No, it's a complete system of faith. You're believing this.
Well, I've just never understood the proselytizing of anti-faith. Like, I understand.
Because I think that what it is if you think you're right. So here's the thing. Most people are not ever going to sign up to do what I do and get on a stage and talk about God.
Right.
But if you got into a conversation with someone who doesn't believe in God and you believe in God, like at some point, like earlier we were talking about winning the argument.
Mm-hmm.
At some point you're going to be like, I want to win because I think I'm right. Like I think that you're wrong for not believing in God. The other side of it is that atheism, although it's not popular, I wouldn't say popular now, I think the part of it is they've been put into a box for so long that once these guys kind of got out there and their voice started getting out there, like it was like, like there's a whole team. You know what I'm saying? Like we want to prove that we're right while you think you're right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think people are like, oh, atheists are like Satanists. No, they don't believe in any of that. Like that's a whole different category of like Satanism.
Honestly,
and
I
like,
don't even think Satanists really.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just a whole different box. But it's like, it's I don't know. So.
Well, I've always, like, I could understand why whenever people say they're agnostic, I'm like, well, I get that.
So I think most people are actually agnostic. I don't think that there's actually that many, and there are, but I don't think there's that many people when they say they're atheists really know what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like because atheism is saying you literally believe in the existence of nothing. That actually at the end of the day, none of this actually matters. Like in nothing you do, now I would, on the flip side, from the theistic view, say, I don't think some of it matters as much as we think it matters. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think in the grand scheme of all of human existence, we're just blips on the radar. And so I think you should live a good life and do some things, but I think some of our choices aren't as big of a deal as we actually think that they are. Okay, so that's kind of, but with atheism, you're literally saying none of it actually matters. Yeah. And to me, that's just like a dark, depressing view of existence,
Well,
Go ahead.
So I'm actually curious about these books. When you read them, was there any point where you're like, I can understand that?
I will say this on the podcast, and hopefully they make up a lot of good points that I've never heard good answers for. Now some of those good points is more the attacking of religion, versus actual existence of God. And so that's where they kind of get into some weird areas where, because that's the other thing. Not all atheists are necessarily attacking theism. Mm-hmm. They're attacking the theism that we've been presented. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? And so they're actually.
But I mean, I could get on board for some of that.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying. So to answer Penny's question, like there were parts where I'm like, okay, like that actually, I can get on board with what you just said. Mm-hmm. Which again sounds funny because of what I do for a living. But these are, here's what I'd say: these are not idiots,
right?
And that's why I tell people you have to be careful with those books, because there's a lot of things because just like, here's the thing: at the end of the day, let me say this. I want to say this. At the end of the day, I'm banking on the fact that I'm right. Mm-hmm. I might not be.
Oh, well.
And there's a piece that's what faith is.
Yeah.
Faith is you're holding on to something that you believe. And in your core, I do believe that a God exists. Mm-hmm. Okay. But there's also the possibility that I could be wrong.
Well, see, I think
most people don't want to acknowledge that because it scares them. Whereas I'm more coming from a system of like, I understand that. Like I'm actually okay with that. Like, I don't know if most people can say that, but me personally, I actually am.
Well, from a personal standpoint, I think, and I don't know, deconstructing is like the fancy word for it now, and then reconstructing if you come back around, whatever it is. But thinking about the way that I was brought up and then what you just said, I mean, a hush would fall over a group of people, because so many people that, you know, in the background I have would say, well, no, there's no doubt this is 100%, but then not live a life in any way, shape, or form that would reflect that, but would say, no, I have full confidence and I am right and this is what's going on. And then
I would argue, and I think they
they
do break these points up in the book. So this is, again, going back to, for a lot of these guys in these books, and a lot of people, it's not about like, they don't have a problem with the theistic view. Mm-hmm. Their point is, if there is a God, then why are we so awful?
Well, I mean, that's fair.
Like, and like, why are we so bad? And that they do hit that a lot. And like, I mean, Sam Harris is brutal, specifically in the history of Christianity in America. Like all of I mean, he hits hard like slavery. Like you have guys that are legitimately leading churches, going to churches, you know, and we'll just call it white men leading churches, speaking about God's love, speaking all of this, and leaving and going to auction blocks to buy slaves.
Well, I've heard people use the Bible to
and they would justify it, you know, because slavery is in the Bible. And, you know, I mean, and he's like brutal with that. And you're like, step back and you go, okay, like, you know, capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you read the Bible, if you read Jesus is like, you can choose God or you can choose money. And those are your choices. And in capitalistic society, and nobody likes this, but I've said it before from stage, America chose a long time ago what their God was going to be. Yeah. And we went after the money. And so like, that you may disagree with that. That's okay. It's okay to be wrong. But like we went after our God a long time ago. Well, and I would say us as people, sometimes we chose our God a long time ago.
I've heard said as proof of that, if you look at any major city, at some point, the biggest building in all the downtowns was a church. And then at one point, the office buildings and like the bank buildings.
Yeah, I mean, if you go like historical build, I mean, that's a good point. Like you go to like even places like Boston.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I mean, like Harvard, Yale, those started as religious institutions. Mm-hmm. And now it's like the school of religion is like the joke, you know, of that school. Not necessarily the joke. There's a lot of smart people coming out of there. But a lot of the people that are coming out there aren't actually going into professions to actually promote Christianity or faith. They're actually going into fields just to talk about it from like an historical perspective. Do you know what I'm saying? They're studying religion, but they're not actually believe or whatever themselves. But yeah, I mean, you go to major cities and that's what you go on these tours, and it's like, here's this old historical church, and it's like this little small building, and there's these giant building corporations all around it.
Because at some point we were just like, it's all a monument to what we desire, and it turned to money.
And that's a lot of their points, you know, to kind of wrap that part up, is that like, hey, if you really believed in a God and that every choice that you made actually mattered and was working towards something, then why is as a whole category, not all the time, but a lot of the time, we're so terrible? Mm-hmm. You know, and I mean, politics, I mean, all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty awful.
Yeah. Well, Penny, I don't want you to feel like you're left out at this.
No, it's fine.
Kind of just turned away from you completely. Okay. I just want to check.
We're good. I'm listening.
All right. So is there anything on the other end that we can help out? So,
well, I think for me, so going back, because you brought it up, so for me, deconstructing is important, and I think people should, if they're willing. Now, here's the other thing. one of the smartest people I know is a guy named Chris Keith, and he's professor of religion in different schools and teaches like Duke and like all these like major schools. Wrote several books. I mean, super smart guy. And he brought up the point one time. He said, I realized a long time ago, because when we would talk, I'm not trying to sound smart, but we're talking on about a very high level of like just theism.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, I don't have to have these conversations with everybody, because I realized at some point I don't have to drag everybody through my mud. He was like, I can't walk away from these conversations because that's where my brain goes. But he's like, I don't need to sit down with, and brought up some people that we know who are like Sunday school teachers. They're fine with, I believe in Jesus. Jesus loves me. They're fine with that. That's their faith. But then there's other of us out there that are like, I believe that, but I have all these other questions and thoughts. And just to say, oh, you just got to believe Jesus loves you and that's enough, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And so like there is a deconstructing process. But then, as I said in the sermon, if you just deconstruct something, like nobody does a remodel on a bathroom, gets to the end, it's like, oh, we don't need the toilet. The hole in the ground works. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to reconstruct it as well. And so I think that's where a lot of people get confused on deconstruction. Is I think it's an important step for some people. I don't think everybody has to do it. Some people are fine with just, Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. Great. That's your faith. But don't criticize the people that are going, okay, I believe that, but I have all this other stuff I want to kind of work through.
Well, so from my point of view of it is like, so my oldest is getting to an age where, she's so much like me, but she's getting ready she'll be in high school next year. And I worry about her, in the real world when she gets out there, because I tried to raise her the best way. But I mean, I was raised in a way that I think was good. And it's, my parents, they were doing their best to say, keep me involved at church, keep me involved with a Christian school when I was younger, and just make sure that kind of thing went on. But then as I got older, I started seeing you start seeing the flaws and you start seeing the hypocrisy and things like that. And it's hard to, as a parent, to see like that happened to me. I don't want this to happen to my children. So I've been very honest with a lot of things. Like, when I say certain things like this, these are just things that I tell you because you're a child, but these are the things that are important. But is there anything out there that's like, as a way to strengthen that, like you read these books because they're very smart people.
Yeah.
Are there counterpoint books that are, or resources that are the other way? Because I think another big part of a reason a lot of people tend to go that way or start deconstructing is they see the people who label themselves in the loudest outspoken Christians. And I mean, not even in like political ways, but that's not helpful. But I mean, for a while, Kanye West was like the big Christian, or Kirk Cameron, and then they get up and they say something. And I mean, maybe even fully in the right when the way they're thinking, but you're saying this person is a highly intelligent person who does not believe in God. And he's going to tear somebody like Kirk Cameron apart because he is a not very smart person who believes in God. Yeah. And there's no argument. In a debate, he's losing every time. But that doesn't disprove God. Well, it just disproves this person's intelligence.
I think that's part of it is that we've turned it into a debate. So the biggest, I mean, we haven't even talked about the biggest thing. The biggest factor in most people when they start to question is when you go science versus religion. Like that's the big.
It's no good.
That's the big one. Yeah. I think what I've always said is I am not going to allow people to determine the battle lines for me. And so people have said, well, you're either science or you're religious. And I'm like, well, no, they actually go hand in hand a lot more than you realize. And there's a lot of things in religion that can't be explained without understanding a scientific worldview. There's a lot of things in science that, if they're honest, which that's the problem, is they don't want to be, because you have two extremes that are talking. There's a lot of things in science that aren't always understandable. Like there's a lot of things in science that are like, that shouldn't work, but it does. And so maybe there's something else that's factored in there that's made that happen. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so I think that's a part of it, is you get these debates and sometimes you're debating the wrong question. I don't know if the Bible can answer all of the questions. If I'm being honest, people are going to hate this, can answer all of the questions about the world and the universe and its existence, other than God created. Okay, yeah. There's your answer. But I don't know if it gets into the semantics of all of what that means.
Yeah, like magnets.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that we want to be like, oh, well, just it's in the Bible. Well, no, some of it's not. Like it's actually not all in there. So I think that's like the big one. I think the biggest thing for kids, and you talked about kids, is I remember, and I'm going to come full circle to what we talked about a minute ago. I remember asking questions and just getting lied to.
Oh yeah,
well, like that's what people would make stuff up because they didn't know. And because they were afraid to admit they didn't have an answer, they would just, I mean, I had, and I won't mention names, I had, when I was in high school, I went to our senior pastor about a question that I had. And now knowing what I do know, I know that he straight up made up the answer. You know what I'm saying? And I don't, okay, so here's the thing. I'll be fair. Maybe he didn't make up the answer. Maybe he had heard it from somewhere, but he didn't actually investigate this himself. He just gave me this, here's your answer. Hope it works. And I remember like walking out of his office and being like, no.
Right.
Like, no, I don't have to get into the semantics of the question, but it was, you know, I just remember walking up and going, no, like that's not an acceptable answer. And B, I don't believe that. I don't, you know, and I think that was part of it is, you know, and even as kids, like, you know, we make up stuff sometimes and like, cause we don't want to be like, I don't know, but I think that's okay. I think it's okay to say, I don't know sometimes.
Well, I think as an adult, like that's one of the things to just, it's a sign of intelligence to go, you know what? I don't know. Yeah. And I can help you find the answer. I can look into it, but to just not to have that attitude where I do know this and I say it out loud. And
I always remind people from the stage, I say this, but when I talk to people, I always tell people, I don't know. Let me see what I can do or come up with something. But I always quick to remind people, I don't know if this side of life will ever know. Mm-hmm. Like, I actually don't know. Like, I don't know if we will actually get an answer to what you're asking. And I think that makes people uncomfortable because they want it. And I'm like, no, that's actually, like, if, from the theistic view, if God exists the way we think God exists, our finite brains will not be able to comprehend fully whatever he is. Right. Or, you know what I'm saying? Does it make sense? And so there's just certain things we're not going to have answers for. And that's faith again. That's that reality of, I believe this, I've investigated, I've looked, there's things that have happened in my life that I can't explain without some type of theistic view. And so I do have faith based on those things. At the end of the day, I also have to go to sleep believing and having faith, but also knowing, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and until you actually get okay with that, I don't know if sometimes you're going to be helpful in the conversations.
Well,
but I could be wrong. Again, I don't know.
Yeah. Who's to say, right?
Yeah, who's to say? Yeah, who's to say?
So
I know I've been to Hucks. That's all I can say.
Well, so what is like an actionable thing that we could do if we're having these kind of thoughts? Is there?
I think that there's a lot of resources, some good, some bad. There's a plethora of podcasts out there. So if you're a podcast person, I think the biggest thing for most people is just acknowledging it. Mm-hmm. I think that people think that if I acknowledge it, that means I don't have faith. Or if I acknowledge it, that like God's going to be mad at me, or like my church is going to be mad at me. And I'm like, no, like I don't think any of those things are
And
true.
if they are, that's maybe not the church for you.
Yeah, I think that
you're looking for answers.
Here's the thing. When you get into like a real study of this stuff, like, so my favorite moments are when I'm sitting down with somebody and they're bringing me their problems and they'll ask me these questions and I'm like, yeah, me too. That's actually like a really good question. I actually don't know. Like, and it's almost like what's crazy is you see the relief on their face because they were worried that I was going to give them some stock answer or that like, and we just be like, no, you know what? I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'll admit that, but I've actually have studied this quite a bit. I actually don't know if like what to do with that. And they'll be like, okay. And then it's almost like freedom for them of like, okay, like that's okay that I feel like this so that I have it's okay.
I always tell my kids, like, especially when they ask questions and I'm like, I don't know. I remind them that we need to be good listeners and listen to what other people like have to say about it.
Yeah.
Or different religions or people that are just different from us or don't believe in God, just because I feel like they'll start to connect the dots a little better.
Yeah.
If there's maybe some like beginning source of it. Does that make sense?
Well, and I think going along with that, like if I sat down with somebody, I could not sit down with Richard, Sam Harrison win a debate. Like he would murder, I'll just go and admit it, he would murder me in a debate. But if I'm sitting down with somebody that's an atheist, there's a lot of them that I could win. Mm-hmm. Like I could be like, okay, I've actually read your boy's stuff. Like I understand what he's saying. I could win that debate because they're just regurgitating, what they've heard. And I'm like, well, okay. So there's holes, just like there's holes in what you're saying about God, there's holes in the atheistic view as well. So let's be fair. But did I really win anything? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think goes back to the winning we're doing full circle, winning the argument.
I'm good at this, I'm telling you.
Like I don't know, I might win the argument but lose the person.
Right.
And so I don't know if the goal is always to win. And I always tell people, like, here's the reality. I can't, when we think about faith. I can't save anybody. I cannot debate you into believing God. Okay, because you know what I'm saying? Like that is, I do believe that is a personal decision you have to make, and that's your journey. Now, I do believe that's the best. I mean, I love Brady Brown. You have to believe everybody's doing the best they can with what they got. You know, I do think that's the best choice. I do believe that there is God, and I think Jesus I believe that he's meant what he said, that he's the best version of God. He's going to show us what God is like and what it means to be human, because we're created. But when it comes to like debating somebody, all the semantics, like I might win that, but did I really win anything? Versus, hey, like we don't see this the same way, but I'm still going to love you. We can still eat meals together. We can still, do these type of things.
Well, I think to tie this whole thing together, like we joked earlier, like we were looking at the Olympic things and we were excited because America won so many medals and we were the best because we won, and we have, and I'm assuming it's not worldwide, this kind of thinking, but being raised in this country that we have to win. Like the goal is not to be correct. The goal is to win. So like when we have these debates, and if it's religious or if it's political or if it's our marriage or things like that, the goal should be you see both sides, you understand, and you can still keep your opinion and they can keep their opinion, but someone shouldn't walk away from an interaction as a loser. But if you're going to win, then the other person lost. And then that person, you don't get them on your side. But like I said, with my wife, like when we do have arguments, it's because something has gone wrong, because I can't think of another way than to not bring it up. But there's so many things that I would say that I was right about. But if I'm going to say, hey, you are wrong because this is going on and this is going on, in a debate, I would win. But who does that help?
Right.
So, I mean, that's the same. It sounds like with this kind of thing, if I could point to you and hit you over the head with this over and over and say, I'm going to win this because you can't argue your point, that doesn't make you any more right. It just makes me not like you. And whatever point you were trying to make is now moot because, more divisive.
There's a verse, I was trying to look it up and I'll find it for a later reference. I'll do it. But like, there's a verse, I think it's in John, and there's a reference in Acts to it too, where it's like, let's think about this. Jesus went to towns. He's God in a body, right? He's best representative of God, all these things. Not everybody believed. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's to me, I've always been like, he would go to these places and do these things. And then there's like this verse and it said, and some believe. So they just saw a resurrected Jesus and it says, and some believed. And I was like, you look at that verse and you're like, what else you got to do to get people to believe? Right. But like, there's no other follow up to that. It's just, and some believed. And it's like, okay, like, and some believed, and that's okay. Like, and maybe some don't, and maybe they never will. And I don't know. That's way above my pay grade.
Well, that's not your job to say, hey.
Yeah. But I always think about that. Like, think about that. Like, Jesus went to these towns and he left some of them and not everybody believed. So it's okay.
Well, all right. Well, I think this is a good point as any to end it. Next week is our big state fair. So the next podcast, I'm sure we'll have all kinds of wild tales.
Well, food reviews, Midway reviews, pouring out a Mountain Dew for Freddie. And we'll see. We're here every Sunday, 10 and 11:15 at Journey Church, online and in person. So check us out, and thanks for listening.